All right, today we're going to break down a really inspiring story. It's about how a few kids, a park that was looking kind of sad, and one big idea came together to create an incredible blueprint for community action. So let's just dive right in.
Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest observations. And this whole story kicks off with just three simple words. A 12-year-old kid named Leo says this to his friend Maya, talking about the trees in their favorite park. It's just a small comment, but trust me, that one little observation is the exact moment that sets everything else in motion. And that brings us right to our first section, the spark of concern. Because really, think about it. Every major movement, every big solution, it almost always starts just like this. One person looks at something and just gets that feeling, that little whisper that says, hey, something isn't right here. And this is exactly what Leo and Maya were seeing with their own eyes. The park they loved was, well, it was fading. The colors weren't bright anymore, just dull yellows and browns. The flowers were drooping. And as Maya put it, the place was just losing its magic. See, this wasn't some far-off problem. It was real. It was tangible, something they could see and feel every day. Okay, but a feeling, even a strong one, isn't enough to actually make a change, right? So that concern pushed them into the next, super important phase, the quest for knowledge. They knew, instinctively, that you can't fix a problem if you don't really understand what's causing it. So this one question basically became their mission. They went from just feeling sad about the park to actively asking why. This is the engine that drives the whole story forward. They weren't just worried anymore. They were investigators on a case. And their investigation led them here. Leo starts doing some research online, and he connects the sick-looking trees in his own park to this massive, global issue, climate change. And the real key here is how he took this huge, kind of overwhelming idea and boiled it down to a simple definition that made perfect sense of what was happening right in his own backyard. So now they have a name for the problem. And that, well, that changed everything. It took them from being confused to having real clarity. And that clarity is what sparked the most important jump in this whole story, moving from just being concerned into taking real, actual action. Armed with this new knowledge, they decided to get organized. Leo, Maya, and their friends Ben and Ava all teamed up. And this is such a critical moment, right? It's when a personal worry becomes a shared mission. They gave themselves a name, the Oak Ridge Green Team. And with that name came a very clear purpose. Now, their first plan wasn't super complicated, and honestly, that was its biggest strength. It was a simple three-step approach. Step 1, get your people together. Step 2, do something immediate, something visible, like a park cleanup. And step 3, start telling people what you're doing and why it's so important. And you know what? At first, it totally worked. While they were cleaning up the park and handing out their flyers, people started noticing. They were getting all this positive feedback. This quote here from a woman walking her dog, it just shows that they were getting that validation. The community could see the difference they were making. But, as anyone who's ever tried to change anything knows, that first burst of enthusiasm often hits a wall. And this is that moment, that inevitable obstacle we all face, the barrier of public apathy. So the team, they set up a booth at the local farmers market. They were so excited, ready to recruit a bunch of new people. And then, crickets. Almost no one stopped. Shoppers just kind of hurried past. All that amazing momentum they had built up just came to a dead stop. And when they were faced with that indifference, you can just imagine how crushed their spirits were. Ben basically says what everyone else is thinking. Maybe we should just give up. Maybe this whole thing was a failure. Maybe it was time to quit. But right when the team hits their absolute lowest point, Maya steps up. She refuses to give in. And her response? It's the real turning point of this entire story. She doesn't deny that they failed. She totally reframes it. The problem isn't their mission, she realizes. It's their method. They just needed a new strategy. This strategic pivot leads them straight to their big breakthrough. They had this huge realization that just throwing facts and flyers at people wasn't going to cut it. They had to tap into something much bigger, the power of genuine community engagement. And here it is, their game-changing insight. What if, instead of just trying to lecture people, they invited them to have a good time? What if they wrapped their important message inside an experience that people would actually want to be a part of? So they planned this massive event, the Oak Ridge Earth Day Festival. Yeah, they still had their informational booths, but now
Now, those booths were surrounded by environmental games, a scavenger hunt, live music, and even a hands-on community planting session. See, they didn't just tell people to care anymore, they gave them a really fun reason to show up and experience the park together. And the event was a huge success. I mean, way bigger than they ever expected. But the most important thing wasn't just the day itself, it was what grew out of it. And that is their lasting legacy.
You can really see the ripple effect of their work over time here. That one small cleanup on the first weekend led to the giant festival a few months later, which in turn led to a permanent, thriving community garden a year after that. And maybe most importantly, the Green Team itself started to grow, with new members joining all the time. They didn't just have an event, they created a self-sustaining movement. This quote just ties it all together perfectly. The beautiful park, the community garden, the active Green Team, all of it, every single bit, grew from that one simple observation Leo made. It's just incredible proof that you don't need some grand plan or a massive organization to start something truly meaningful. So, that really leaves us with one final question to think about. The Green Team story gives us a super clear blueprint. Notice a problem, learn about it, take action, and, this is key, be ready to pivot when you hit a wall. So, when you look at your own world, your own community, what's a seed of change that you could plant?